public hearing part of the board meeting. So we're going to start with the public hearing. I think we should have the pledge and the moment of silence before anything starts. So please join us in those two things. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing.
Pledge allegiance to the United States of
Thank you, because the elementary students, you do this on a daily basis, so we applaud you for that. Thank you. Now, please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you.
It's all yours, sir. Go ahead and take it away.
Good evening, Mr. President, trustees, and members of the audience. On a yearly basis, TEA, Texas Department of Education, always has the results, and they release the final results in the latter part of November, early part of December. And it's not until then that the districts are obligated to do a public hearing, even though we knew we had preliminary figures. And the reason for the preliminary figures is because it cannot be filed in the event that school districts have the opportunity to appeal whatever the results are. And so when the appeal process goes through, the commissioner and his or her their team oversees all that, then they make a final decision on whether those appeals are going to be granted or not. And so hence, that's why the delay takes place. Therefore, from our point of view as a district, we knew that when we received the preliminary results, we knew that we were not going to appeal, number one, because every single district met standard for the second time in a row. And so this is why now it becomes official. So having said that, I will turn it over to our Director of Testing and Evaluation, and that's Ms. Ofelia Alvarez, who will be here to make a public hearing, because that is what is required by Texas Education Code. Ms. Alvarez?
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Mr. Superintendent, board members, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I will be presenting the 2016-2017 Texas Academic Performance Report for the Donna Independent School District. I am Ofelia Alvarez, Director of Testing and Evaluation. And every year, every district is required by TA to hold a public hearing to address the following: the Texas Academic Report, which is this one, the Campus Performance Objectives, Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board Report, the Report of Violence or Criminal Incidents, PEIMS Financial Standard Report, District Accreditation Status. Each district's Board of Trustees must hold a public meeting or hearing, to discuss the district's annual report within 90 days of receiving the taper. Within 2 weeks following the public meeting, each district must widely publish it annually, its annual report, including posting it on the district website and other places as such. We will begin the 2016-2017 school year with the student enrollment profile. The total number of students last year was 15,036. We can break it down to student information. Of economically disadvantaged, 93.7%, non-economically disadvantaged, 6.3%. ELLs, English language learners, 48.9%, student with disciplinary placements, 2.3%, and at-risk students, 76.7%. The student enrollment by program is also broken down: bilingual education, 49.3%, career and technology, 22.7%, and gifted, talented education, 8.3%, and special education, 7.7%. We will begin also, now with our elementary STAR results, which we have the reading, the math sections here. We have the grade levels, the district, the region, and the state scores and averages for the 2016-2017, as well as the difference between them. I will tell you the district, and of course you can see the region and the state. The third grade district reading from 2016 was 54% to 2017, 58%. Fourth grade, 58% to 56%. Fifth grade, 64% to 69%. For the math, third grade, 62% to 70%, fourth grade 66% to 71%, fifth grade 84% to 87%. Now we have fourth grade writing district for 2016, 59% to 52%. Science, fifth grade, district 66% to 67%. Moving along with middle school star results, we have sixth grade, seventh, and eighth grade. Once again, for reading, district 49% to 48%, seventh grade 53% to 63%, eighth grade 75% to 74%. On the math, sixth grade, we had district 63% to 69%, seventh grade 58% to 63%, and eighth grade district 81% to 85%. For fourth grade writing, seventh grade district 59% to 63%, science eighth grade 70% to 70%, social studies eighth grade district 65 to 62%. Next, we have the high school end of course results. For English 1 for 2015-2016 will be 50%, 2016-2017 46%, English 2 49% to 48%, Algebra 1 70% to 80%, Biology 79% to 78%, U.S. History 92% to 92%. Now, as far as attendance is concerned, just a friendly reminder, our attendance rate data coming from TEA is 1 year behind. This is the data for 2015-2016, but that's the way it is. We see the breakdown, the Hispanic from 95.2% to 94.9%, special ed 94% to 94%, economically disadvantaged 95.3% to 94.9%, ELLs 95.5% to 95.3%, and district 95.2% to 94.9%. The annual dropout, when it comes to dropout, the negative numbers are actually good as opposed to the positive. So here we have the breakdown for annual dropout for the 7th and 8th grade for the 2014-2015 school year, as well as the 2015-2016 for the Hispanic special ed education economically disadvantaged ELL district. We also have it for the 9 through 12 percentages for such populations, as well as the district and region and state. Texas Higher Education, on the full report for the 2016-2017 Texas Academic Performance Report, you will find additional statistics on higher education and any other specific information that you would like. We also have, looking at the teachers by experience in the district, Donna Independent School District, we have the percentages by beginning teachers, teachers from 1 through 5th years of experience, teachers for 6 to 10 years of experience, teachers for 11 to 20 years of experience, and over 20 years of experience. And these are the percentages that are composed within our district. On the bottom there, you have the average teacher salary for the district and for the state. For the beginning, once again, teachers for the 1 through 5 years of experience, 6 through 10 years experience, 11 through 20, and over 20 years of experience. And also, once again, the average salaries for the district and as well as the state. The Texas statute requires every district to publish an annual report on violent and criminal incidents, and that's what we will be seeing next, the violent and or criminal offenses. We have them from the 2015-2016 year to the 2016-2017 year. These are the offenses that we have recorded as incidents, and these are for the 2015-2016 and 2016-2017 school year. We would say the first will be drugs, 183 to 144, alcohol 1 to 5 of last year, terroristic threat 0 to 4, public lewdness 2 to 0, assault of school staff 36 to 28, gang-related activities 6 to 3, weapons 2 to 0, arson 2 to 1, criminal mischief 7 to 3, and firearms 0 to 2. Along with this is the financial report or profile that you will not find in the TAPER report, but you will be able to find it in the TA website under the PIMS financial standard reports. And this is more or less the breakdown of the total operating expenditures by function. We have the instructional media, the curriculum staff, the instructional leadership, school leadership, and so on and so forth. And these are the total expenditures for our district for this 2016-2017 school year. The Texas Education Agency assigns a district an accredited status each year. And we have 4 accreditation statuses. The first one would be accredited, which means TA recognizes the district meeting the standards determined by the commissioner. The accredited warrant means the district exhibits deficiencies in performance. The accredited probation means the district exhibits deficiency in performance that must be addressed to avoid revocation. And not accredited revoked that means TA does not recognize the district as a Texas public school because the performance failed in some way to meet the standards that TA has for the district. So we are happy to report that TA has designated Donna ISD as an accredited district. Just a reminder that this is the highest accreditation that TA gives, so we are happy that our district is accredited. And just to finalize this, yes, very good, accredited district. Just to finalize this, we have access to the 2016-2017 annual Texas Academic Performance Report through the TA website, through the Donna ISD website. Every campus will have one in their library office as well as central office, and of course the Donna Public Library. In our Donna ISD website, you will find it under District Resources, and of course, that is there. Now, we will take any questions anybody might have.
Anybody have questions for Ms. Alvarez? Nope.
You feel me wanting to get in there? No questions, but I just wanted for my fellow board trustees that I spent a lot of time looking at data. So one thing that I think to help make sense of this is that I want to draw your attention to some key areas where we're standing out. 5th grade math, 8th grade math, and then algebra, and then also U.S. history at the high school level. These are areas that we're at or above the state average. And that is significant as well because our overall, demographic of economically disadvantaged is much higher than the state average. So I just want to point out those areas as places where we can learn from and should learn from and apply those learnings to some of the places where we haven't seen progress.
Anybody else? We take questions from the public, right?
Yes,
Go ahead.
But
Yeah.
I would like to just make a general comment. I want to commend the teachers out here. I don't know how many teachers and principals we have out here, but
Yeah.
a lot of this work would not be possible without your hard work and dedication. Having been in the classroom, I know what it takes to test, what it takes to prepare our students for that exam, and you guys are the unsung heroes in the classrooms that do all the work, and I just want to commend you guys. I don't know how many do we have any teachers out there? We are. Please stand up. Be acknowledged. Thank you again for all you do. And like I said, a lot of times, as a teacher, we always feel that, we're the ones in the trenches, and you guys are the ones that are there. I'm speaking from, when I say we, I mean because I was there at one time, and I know what it is to be on your feet from 7:30 to 4:30, and then sit down and grade papers, and then prepare your kids, and then on Saturdays come in and do tutoring and after-school tutoring. So, your work does not go unrecognized. So, thank you all very much for what y'all do.
Yes.
Anybody else? Okay, at this time, if there's anybody out in the audience that would like to add anything to the public hearing, you're welcome to speak at this time.
Is this just in general, or?
No, it has to do with with this part. Okay, with that in mind, I think that brings to a conclusion the public hearing, and we are gonna move on to the regular board meeting. And so at this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The time is 6:18. We've already done the Pledge of Allegiance and the moment of silence, so I think we need to move on to the board recognition.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, but before we move on, I'd like to make a note, a change on the agenda.
Okay.
I'd like to recommend to delete number 11 under consent agenda. Again, number 11. Reason for this is because, as I noted during the board review, that we had put that on there in the event that the quotes would be coming in above the 25,000, and they did not. So our office has already begun the process because it was all below that. So again, deleting item 11 under consent agenda.
Okay,
Thank you.
go ahead, Drew.
Okay, Mr. President, trustees, we start off with board recognition, and on this, as you all well know, we had a total of 72 floats, of which Mr. Angel will give a little more detail, but we have presentation of Donna HD Literacy Parade winners, and to give that recognition, I'm gonna call Ms. Delma Rangel. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone, committee members, board members. It's my pleasure to announce the winners of our literacy parade. I'm going to call Mr. Tomas Tames, our parental involvement director.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Castillo. As Ms. Rangel mentioned, we will be presenting the places, first, second, and third place winners for the Literacy and Arts Parade we held this past Saturday. But before we present the winners, I'm going to show you a brief slide presentation on what took place on Saturday. Okay. And now we're going to call on our first, second, and third place winners. We're going to be beginning with our third place winner in the parade. And our third place winner is Donna High School. And there's a small video of what their float looked like. And that was Donna High School. Principal, please come up and receive your trophy. Along with our third place trophy, the campus will be receiving $97 of library books donated by Train and $75 of art supplies donated by Gateway Office Supplies. And now our second place winner goes to Stanky Elementary. And now the principal, Stanky Elementary Principal. And Stanky students.
They're here, get them up here. Oh.
Right there, the teacup.
Tayo ng cone? Tayo ng cone? It's a nice skirt. Hello?
I like the mask.
Oh, yes, also, second place winners receive $101 of library books donated by Train, and $150 of books and miscellaneous items donated by Barnes and Noble. And now, our first place winner, Salazar Elementary. Congratulations, Salazar Elementary. Principal, come forward. And any students, staff that you might have.
The Harry Potter emblem. What is the school?
I like that.
The conductor,
No, no, you're not.
the tree.
Is she acting that sleep? No, she's asleep. She's a good actor.
She's.
I guess so. Way to go.
In addition to their trophy, they'll be receiving $112 of library books donated by Train and $500 of Texas take-home backpacks donated by Teacher Created Materials. Congratulations to all three placements in the parade. Before we close, it is evident in the work and efforts and dedication displayed in the parade floats and food activity booth that our DISD students and staff take pride in our school district and respective campuses. Many hours of planning and preparation are involved in coordinating this district-wide event. It requires extensive collaboration from all campuses, departments, in order to make this event a success. The festival committee was instrumental in coordinating with campuses and ensuring the safety of all that took part in this event. The spirit and pride of our Donna ISD students, the community, was well represented, and campus staff and administration, board members, and the entire Donna community was well represented in this event. Thank you, everyone, for your help and support and making our 2017 Donna ISD Literacy and Arts Festival a memorable event. Thank you so much. Also, a special thank you to our additional festival sponsors. We had Teacher Created Materials, Rofa Architects, Jaramillo Insurance, and City of Donna. Thank you, everyone. for this great and wonderful activity that we have, event that we have yearly in our district. Thank you.
Okay, it is time for open forum. Everyone will be allowed 3 minutes because of the number of presenters that are here. We have Cameron Moreno, Jessica Moreno Lino, Dolores Castillo, Albert Garza, Amalia Mata, Maria, looks like Zenon, and another one that just says Maria for cheer, so that might be the same person. So first up is Cameron Moreno.
Good evening.
Test 1, 2.
Good evening. My name is Cameron Moreno, and I was 24 years old, or hours old, I'm sorry, when I attended my very first football game for my oldest brother. When I was 3 years old, I wore my first white night cheer uniform. Although I may not remember it, that day set my dreams in motion. Since I was born, I had never missed one varsity football game. I am a former competitive gymnast and ranked 9th at state championships, a former junior B ballet, jazz, and tap dancer, and a former advanced hip-hop dancer. All of these organizations I committed myself to before I could be a varsity Redskin cheerleader. It was training, so when the time came for varsity cheer tryouts, I was qualified and had the skills. Unfortunately, Donna High School's principal had different plans. The year that would be my 9th grade year, she decided to corrupt tryouts and place students on the varsity team that had not officially made it. The next 2 years, my sophomore and junior year, I officially made the varsity squad. The principal continued down the same corrupted path. Due to lack of experience, the squad suffered unnecessary injuries and multiple concussions. One you may not even know about was a team member who fell off a stunt and wouldn't wake up, and 911 had to be called. I myself ended up with 2 herniated discs and an annular tear, and 4 of my teammates and best friends at the time ended up resigning. So this is for the 4 that are now seniors who resigned, and a sophomore who is struggling to get through this year of her very first varsity experience, and a junior who did resign. At the age of 5, my family and I could be seen decorating Salinas and Redskin Boulevard, aka Wood Avenue, and the Redskin locker room in support of my oldest brother, Jacob Medina, and the Redskins. We are talking posters, ribbons, banners, small crafted gifts, spaghetti dinners, you name it, and we did it. Ever since then, I have always given back to the Redskins and my community in one way or another. 2 years ago, I hosted a spaghetti dinner my freshman year for the freshman football team. Last year, I founded the Princess Project and provides gently used and new prom dresses to young ladies of both of our high schools, and I'm currently working on a new project to assist my fellow classmates. This past summer 2017, I found limited edition Pepsi soda cans and decided I would purchase them from my own pocket and give them out on the last game. My family and I asked for permission to pass them out to the varsity players because they arrived late and was denied that opportunity. I was told that I could not pass them out because my name was on the tag, and a comment was made by Superintendent, which was, "That girl causes problems." On Friday, November 17th, I decided to go ahead and pass them out anyways because there was no UIL rule stating that a classmate couldn't give gifts out to another classmate. All I ever truly did was protest what I knew was ethically and morally wrong. I wore a t-shirt back in 2017 in support of the original squad members that officially made it, and I reported unsafe practices and brought the inside out. The reality is that I am the granddaughter of Raquel Martinez, who is known around town as the community watchdog and for some, an advocate. There is no love lost between Donna High principal and my grandma. What you don't know is that I have been the target of the principal, and she knows it's true. What you don't know is that several different employees of DISD, not DHS, have come by my house to express their concern to my family about the comments that Donna High School's principal has made about me by name. One being that the only reason I do anything is for Indian Sweetheart. Sure, Indian Sweetheart plays a big role in my heart, but it's not about that at all. Giving back to my community and the Redskins is in my heart and blood. I grew up surrounded by Redskins, Bravettes, Diettes, and members of the mighty Redskin band. My family is a giving tree, and some teammates and I have been seriously hated on, and we have had to deal with bullying and comments and have dealt with being treated unfairly by Donna High School's principals and DISD's superintendent who supports her, and why wouldn't he, right? He is her husband. You would think that showing school pride and speaking up against wrongdoing would have been viewed as a positive and not a negative.
You got 10 seconds.
I am in 11th grade now, and my teammates that resigned are seniors, and it is difficult for me to see them sitting in the stands this season because they should have been down on the track in the white uniform cheering on the boys.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for letting us know.
Thank you for your bravery and sharing.
Jessica Moreno Lino.
Hi, I'm gonna continue on with her. These are her words. They are the ones who deserve to be there and they can't because the principal of DHS has made it so difficult for everybody they can't even enjoy something they wanted their whole life. As for myself, I'm starting to understand their situation and decision of resigning. Because of the principal's constant targeting, trying to reach my grandma through me has made it extremely difficult to get through my days. I have not enjoyed one day of high school because she has turned many against me. She's bounced me around like a yo-yo from class to class. There is so much more, but not enough time to explain. My sophomore year, I was in counseling because everything became too overwhelming and affected me emotionally, physically, and mentally. My friends were no longer my friends because if they were seen talking to me, they started to get treated unfairly. Why is it that this woman can't separate me from my grandma? My grandma and me don't always agree and aren't always on the same side of issues. Sure, she backs me up when she feels I'm in the right, but she corrects me when she feels I'm wrong, along with the rest of my family. The principal is supposed to be a professional, but for some reason, as she herself mentioned in a conversation she thought was private, saying that Cameron Moreno is a thorn in my side. This past Friday, I was accused of hiring a choreographer that I knew nothing about, and I was accused of taking money from the fundraiser money the cheerleaders raised, all false, by the way. On Friday, I finally hit my breaking point, and I was determined to throw everything I've worked so hard for away. Luckily, I have a few great friends and family members who encouraged me to keep pushing through. Every time I tried resigning from the one thing I wanted all my life, there was this little voice in my head telling me that they don't deserve to get what they want, which is to see me quit. And that little voice was right. I believe that God has bigger plans for me. I believe that I haven't gone through all this at such a young age for nothing. All of this has cost me almost my whole teenage life, and I refuse to let mine and other girls' dreams of being a varsity cheerleader be torn apart by Donna High School's principal and her abuse of power, which has only made her a dream killer. There are 7 girls and counting whose dreams have been crushed because of her, and I refuse to let it continue. You are going to vote on a new constitution today that a committee worked very hard on and tried their very best to make the best decisions possible for the future of the cheer program. I was part of that committee. We had many, many discussions and lots of different opinions. All things considered, it's really good. You should vote to pass it. You may hear that it was designed to secure a spot for me. Read through it and you will see that's not the case. By the way, thanks, but no thanks. I would never accept a spot on the squad that was given to me. I can hold my own. I will earn my spot. I have strengths and weaknesses like anyone else, but I will go through tryouts the right way and earn it. What we need in addition to this constitution is a person in charge of making sure all the committee's work is enforced.
Thank you. Dolores Castillo.
Good evening, everybody. Mine is a different topic, so sorry. I think we're all just lined up with different topics.
Fine.
And I have to write my stuff down otherwise to make sure I stay professional. We are concerned as community members. So on the agenda, we noticed sometime last week that on the agenda there's a discussion to review And it's also going to go to executive session. But there's an item for a discussion to review a superintendent's leave. And we as a community are asking the board to inform us the reason for this. We don't know how this works, especially if it's going to go to executive session. Can you at least let us share with the community what's going on? And we need to know why. And then our district has been, our district is and has been stable. And we have seen a lot of increased positive energy in staff and at campuses. I'm retired, but I can hear it out at the community levels. One of the questions that was posed for me to ask you guys is, why are you resorting to the same practice of the previous boards? And also, is there an alternative to this process, to this step that y'all are going to take tonight? We as communities, as a community, we want to see all of you as board members work together and resolve any issues that come up in the district. We are all professionals, all of us. We are all professionals, and we need to set a goal, a good example to our young students, who in the end, that is what this institution is all about. This is not a business for somebody to come in and say, well, I'm going to spend the money this way because I want to make money on it. No. This belongs to the state of Texas. The state of Texas wants to, the state that wants to all of our students to get educated. And you need to do it the best way that you can. The only way you're going to do that is by being professional about it and getting as many people as involved within the district. And again, it's not just one person that is in charge. It's the whole community, or all the professionals that were employed to do the job at our district. Everybody needs to come together and work together. So thank you, and we hope that we are given more information regarding this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Legal counsel, Mr. Farah, since this is open forum, we can't have a discussion, but can we answer her questions when we get to the agenda item?
Yeah, when it comes to the open session after executive, you can speak freely about your reasoning, whatever you want to disclose.
Okay, Alberto Garza.
Good evening. Thanks for this opportunity to come up here. I'm not one that speaks a whole lot or eloquently, but I'm hoping I'm going to get my point across. My message is actually directed to each and every one of you up there on the board. It's not been but over a year that elections came up, and there was a very definitive decision that was made by the taxpayers of this community by the changes that were made. Every single one got replaced with the exception of Mr. Ceniceros. So every one of you need to understand that there's a message that was sent to you, okay? Don't ever forget that, because sometimes I hear that you're starting to go in a different direction with things. This is the time to be strong. This is the time to think outside the box. This is the time to be, as she said, professional about the decisions that you make. It's not political, okay? Always remember that, because you're accountable to us. It's not the other way around. Never forget that. We understand. You know, I work for a living like I'm sure everyone else does. You know, I give you all the confidence that you're going to make the decisions for me. That's why I elected every one of you guys, to make those tough decisions, to think outside the box, to make me feel confident that when I go home and you guys have your meetings, that you're doing it in the best interest of the children and this community. It's that simple. There's nothing complicated about that, okay? So never forget that. That's coming from me, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Amalia Mata.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent. Tonight, there will be discussion of possible action on changes to the chair constitution. First of all, the committee formed was by invite only. Some committee members are not former Donna High School cheerleaders or parents. I feel there should have been more input from current and past cheer parents. Donna North High School cheer sponsor and student council sponsor were invited, not Donna High School. Second, changes made are only to benefit the person who filed the grievance to begin with. Finally, there are proposed changes to the Indian Sweetheart Constitution. The committee was not to look at the cheer constitution, was only to look at the cheer constitution, not Indian Sweetheart Constitution. Indian Sweetheart is under the direction of student council, therefore only they should be allowed to make changes. One of the proposed changes is about campaigning. I'm sure all of you, the board, have experienced how much goes into a campaign. My daughter's a current Indian Sweetheart, and planning started about a year in advance. To make changes now would be devastating and unfair to candidates for the upcoming election. Please take these thoughts into consideration and vote against proposed changes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Maria Zenon? Okay, let's call for Maria. On the second page, it just says Maria Cheer. Nobody? Okay, that brings to a conclusion the open forum of the meeting, and we will be going on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President, trustees. Going into superintendent's report, item number 1, discussion and possible action on approval to reschedule regular board meeting from January the 9th, 2018 to January 16th. And as noted in your packet, you do have a copy of the calendar. When we had our board review, the rationale was that our Christmas break is effective December 21st through the 4th of January. Hence, being the 9th of January, that would be the very first Tuesday upon our return. So this is the recommendation that we're having to change it to the 16th so it can give staff and members of the respective campuses to prepare for the January regular board meeting. So unless anyone has a question, administration recommends approval.
So recommendation to approve moving the meeting.
So moved.
So motion by Mr. Guerrero, second by Mr. Avila. All in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Mr. Castillo, if we could look at when the calendar is set for the school year, if we can look at the full calendar for the board meetings, because it looks like we might need to move the March one because there's a spring break.
Correct.
Okay. And do it all at once.
Sure, you can do that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, human resources.
HR 2, Mr. President, trustees. I'm sorry. HR 1. HR 1. We've got discussion and possible action on DISD resolution on safe zones for learning. This is an item that was made in a very general manner so that we're able to discuss. And Ms. Reyna, I'll turn it over to you.
So in the November open forum, there was a couple of public comments that were made, and I requested in that November meeting time that we put those 2 agenda items onto the December regular meeting for discussion, this being one of them. And there should have been, there's some extra copies of the Safe Zones for Learning resolution that we passed. And we're returning this to this resolution specifically to dig in a little bit deeper about what we can do to better support our immigrant students, our undocumented students, and their families, and really just exploring some ideas of like, what are we doing already? What could we be doing? What are some of the resources out there? And Ms. Estrada, the union president, she's going to share for NEA. I want to first just draw our attention to 2 different areas here in the resolution that speak to specifically this discussion we're going to have. Whereas it's the third one down, whereas the United States Supreme Court held in Plyer v. Doe that no public school district has a basis to deny children access to education based on their immigration status or the status of their parents, citing harm it would inflict on the child and the society itself, and the equal protection of rights of the 14th Amendment. And our charge as a district is to provide high-quality education to all students, regardless of their immigration status. And then on the second page, what I want to highlight for all of us is, it's about 3/4 the way down. It says resolved further District personnel shall not inquire about or document any student's immigration status or that of the student's families, and pursuant to the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act and relevant law, shall not disclose without parental consent the immigration status or other personal information about any student or his or her family, or use legitimate access to student education records to obtain information about immigration status. And the last thing here is just encouraging the superintendent increase and enhance partnerships with community-based organizations and legal service organizations who provide resources for families facing deportation. And so I just thought it would be helpful to review that language. We also had a really great article come out highlighting one of our incredibly talented, passionate students. Her name was Jennifer Chacon. And what a powerful story that came out in the Monitor. And while she herself is not undocumented, but it tells the story of how complicated these issues are. Her father having been deported a year ago and finding out that her sister, who was also a student of ours, was diagnosed with leukemia, and having to share with their father from this far away that she's, has leukemia and the grave effects of that. And so it just shows the complexity of what so many students in our community face. And the discussion here is really around, given that and our charge to educate all students, what is it that our different students need, and what do we need to be doing? So Mrs. If you could share some of the things that are on your mind.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, ladies of the board, administration, the community. When we came forward to you guys back in March, and then you all passed this in April, it was more of a humanitarian reach to the district on how to protect our students, because that's, like I said, it's not their fault. They're in the situation they're in. The parents decided to, leave and try and make a better life. A lot of our children, a lot of our students, a lot of the adults that are being affected by DACA not being renewed, they don't know anything else but being here in the United States. And so the one point that really got to me was when one of our parents asked us, if I get deported, my husband and I, get picked up, can you take my children? And at that time, because I wasn't very well versed in what I could and could not do, the only thing I thought, it was like, well, if they're undocumented, then I would be harboring somebody that's undocumented and I could get in trouble. Well, thanks to the training that I have with NEA, it turns out that all I need is a power of attorney from the parents giving me permission to take over, the care of their children if they get deported. Now the process is that we need to make sure we let our parents know what their rights are and what they can do, what we can do to help them. Because a lot of parents, well, they don't know that that power of attorney is free, where we've got attorneys, charging them up to $300 to $400 to get, that power of attorney validated. And it's free. All they have to do is pay for it to be notarized. And so when we came to open forum last month, we didn't have enough time to do the ask, which was a postcard campaign that we were doing, trying to apply pressure to Congress and to try and pass a Clean Dream Act. At this time, we were able to avert a government shutdown on Friday, and so it's been extended to December the 22nd, and so we're trying to really, really apply pressure to our two senators who are not supporting a Clean Dream Act. And basically what we're doing right now is both Republicans and Democrats want this Dream Act to pass. They do. But they both have their own agendas. The Democrats want the DREAM Act to be passed alone, as a standalone bill with nothing attached to it. The Republicans want it to be part of, we want some more defense funding, we want some more border security funding. So, there's where the give and take. And I guess I'm just so naive, as old as I am, and I'm just so naive at how people could play with people's lives. When we went before Kay Granger's office
last April, and we were talking about the Child Nutrition Reauthorization Act, and we asked her aide, how does she feel about this, this part right here? And her response, she says, oh, we're just gonna sit and wait because it's kind of like a give and take. So we're gonna use it to bargain. I said, these are children's lives we're bargaining with? And so, yeah, we were asked to leave. I guess it got a little too uncomfortable for her, and they asked us to leave. But the same thing here. This is a social justice issue. And so the community needs to understand that these children, these families, a lot of them are not here to just take advantage of the government. Yeah, we have a lot of instances like that. You know what? Let that be on them. But we have a lot of our students that don't. We have parents, that are asking for, food. Can you please put me down for a food basket? Can you please? Because they don't qualify for food stamps. And a lot of them are working, little jobs here and there to try and make ends meet. So anyway, so our ask before we continue, my ask is to the community, to the board members, to everybody here today, is you all need to contact Senator Cornyn and Senator Cruz, and ask them to please support a clean DREAM Act, nothing attached to it. Okay, so didn't know what else to do after I spoke to Ms. Reina, but we did get in contact with Lupe in San Juan, and you need to also understand that these people are afraid to come out because they're undocumented. They are afraid to come to meetings, even though it's for their own good, because we're going to give them information. Run Elementary, with the support of our principal, Ms. Alisa Sarmiento, the parental department, the parent educator, we were able to get a small session going for the parents, and we were hoping we were gonna get a lot of parents. We got 8. So our organization, Donna TSTNEA, we went ahead and sponsored, gift cards and little door prizes and the food, to kind of like draw them in. And we had Lupe come in and do the presentation. And that's how we're working. I'm not very well versed with all these things, but I do know of resources. So what Ms. Reina wants to do is she wants to make sure that we are providing, information to our parents on, their rights, how we can help protect their students while they're at school, and any way we can help them. Again, this is a humanitarian issue. This is a social justice issue. This is not anything else. I mean, it's become a political thing, but it's just basic human decency. So, I don't know if you wanted to say anything else. We do have something with NEA, a PowerPoint that we can probably share with the administration, with the superintendent, and maybe HR, and then maybe pass it on down to the principals so that they can review it, and then have a meeting with their staff so that they can have a better understanding of what's going on and how they can help their children.
Yeah. I just want to see if there's anyone else in the audience that has something to share that would give insight into things that maybe are already exist in the district that are helpful to our teachers to support all students, their students, or things we should be thinking about and doing. I don't know.
Yes, they do.
So how would the public know if folks in the community want to donate resources or food, you're saying, to a school? How would they do that, Mr. Castillo?
Right now, what we've got is the parent educators have a center, and they stay in contact with these organizations, and they stay in contact with the counseling department as well. As you well know, we're doing the Christmas, where the schools were doing fundraisers, and whatever they raised, the district was going to match, so that they themselves within that their school setting would go take them, and most of the time it's going to be here in Walmart and Donna, based on the rebates that we get from the co-op. So that's one example that we have. sometimes the actual community members, rather the donors, they select a school on their own. For example, Salazar has been picked by the Country Sunshine, that is a trailer park in Weslaco. And they're gonna go on their 20th year of doing this, and they picked up, I believe, 163 names already from that particular area. So it depends on the vendor, but we do have the accessibility from the counselors to the parent educator to the organizations.
Hand in the back. And does that run till the end of the break? Donna High School, Mr. Estrada. So one of the other things that Ms. Estrada mentioned here, so NEA has a training, we call it Supporting Immigrant Students and Families, and it's specific for educators. So one thing I would propose, Mr. Castillo, is that during a principals meeting, we, as a first step, set up, if you all will help us, Freddie and Ms. Estrada, find whoever that might be, if it's somebody from Lupe, somebody from NEA, that could come in and do that training for principals as a first step. And then I think from there, we might explore like principals determining when might be good to have that kind of presentation. It's like a know your rights, like we should get some information out in people's hands, teachers' hands, so that if they do have a student that has confided in them, they know how to support that student versus being at a loss of like even where to start. So I would say maybe if we can start with like some time at a principals meeting to get this information training, and then go from there, and each principal can determine how to get this training out to their staff or something. If we could do that in partnership with you all.
Right now that you mentioned teachers, I do want to mention that one of another part of the persons that are getting affected are, as far as the adults, are our documented teachers. Teachers, that are documented. And so they're in the process of losing that as well. And so we approximately have 2,000 Dreamers now teaching in Texas classrooms, giving their students access to the American dream. And at a time when Texas has a teacher shortage and a majority of Texas students are Hispanic, these teachers have a unique ability to connect with our students and show them the importance of education. I do have one friend of mine from Austin, and she was here. She's been here since she was 2 years old. And so when the DREAM Act was passed back in 2012, her mom told her, you need to go apply. And she applied. And I guess the part that really got me the most was when she said that when she finally went and applied and got her Social Security and her driver's license, that she finally felt like she was a human being, somebody that could be counted, somebody that she can finally now come out of the shadows. And so now she is back in Austin. She is a teacher. She just got back from DC where she was out there lobbying as well. But she is a teacher for special ed, the hearing impaired. And so she's standing to lose her DACA in March. So her future is up in the air right now. So our ask is, Mr. Castillo, board members, is that if you can please, we are going to be passing you, giving you all some posters, and on the bottom there is a link. If there's any way that we can share that with the district through our district website, through the school district website, or through the email, so that people can click on that link and go in there and do our ask, is where it's an email where they'll be directed to email Senator Cornyn and Senator Cruz on this issue. And we only have up until December the 22nd. We don't know what's going to happen if it does not go through, because then, like I said, it's tied to the budget being passed. So We don't know whether the government will be shut down, and we don't want the government shut down. We just want a clean DREAM Act. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, let me just make a motion here. So I move that we set up a time during the principals meeting to have this training for as a start, the principals and administrators.
I'll second that.
There's a motion to commence the training at a principals meeting by Ms. Reina and a second by Mr. Avila. All in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
HR two, Mr. President and trustees, discussion and possible action on progress implementing non-ISD due process policies. And in your packet, you do have as a backup, that is referred to DCD local. So, Ms. Reina?
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Mr. Castillo, and the community. I want to thank you for taking the initiative in adopting the DCD local policy. Although the process has assisted in disciplinary actions, there are still some issues that need to be addressed. So we're handing out a folder that has a copy of our current DCD local policy, and it also has a copy of our counseling form that leads up to write-up, recommendation for termination, and recommendation as to making some additions to the DCD local. So first of all, I'd like to address that I know that last year was really one of the years that we kind of implemented this due process. And it worked both ways, you know, for the protection of our employees and as well as holding a lot of our employees accountable. I do want to point out that there's two sides of the spectrum. There's contractual people, and then there's at-will. So I'm only discussing the at-will. At-will don't have the protection of a contract, and there's a lot of gray areas that I think that we need to get to the point that they're more in black and white, to the point that we become more consistent on how it's implemented and more fairly across the board as to how we proceed with taking action when somebody needs to be counseled or written up or terminated at that. So first of all, I'd like to point out the consistency. Being that it's a new thing, not totally new, but you know, we kind of try to create a universal forum to where everybody would be treated fairly, and the actions against one employee in one department and another department were more consistent with each other as to how we took action against our employees. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out, the consistency in the plan that was implemented. There are levels to be followed, as you can notice on page 2 of the DCD local. We do have the step 1 that's counseling and verbal warning. We do have the step 2 that's a written warning, step 3 that's final warning, and a step 4 that's pretty much at the point that it reaches the board where most of the time termination is recommended. With that being said, being that this kind of policy is new, I'd like to point out that on page 3, we do have a section called dismissal. That's still, you know, here it's stating that you can go, you should go through step 1, 2, 3, and 4 based on the actions taken. But then we get to the end where this dismissal part kind of throws everything out of the window, where you can be terminated for any reason or no reason. And I'd like to point out that I as well as TSTA and some employees would like to see if maybe we could set up a board workshop to discuss this more thoroughly and create a more clear policy for our at-will employees. Just to reiterate on what at-will employees, there are our auxiliary pretty much, our clerks, our secretaries. I believe we have about 1,000, maybe a little bit over 1,000. And that's pretty much almost half of our employees that are at will and don't have a contract. And so with that being said, when at-will employees do get suspended for any reason, investigation, for whatever reason, They are not paid. So any employee can be accused of any action that points to suspension with investigation, and they are not compensated. And so these are a few things that, you know, if we do schedule a board workshop, we'd like to point out, I have a form in there that states suspension, and that's something that we'd like to go over in that workshop if we do get to the point to schedule one. That an at-will employee will receive written notification when placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. Suspension with pay will be an administrative measure taken in order to facilitate the investigation of allegation or questions raised concerning an employee's conduct or for further reasons deemed appropriate by the superintendent or designee. When a teacher is suspended, a principal is suspended, anybody with a contract, they're automatically suspended with pay, right? When an at-will employee is suspended, it can be a frivolous accusation, it can be an actual investigation that needs to get placed, they don't get paid. And so to create some fairness within our district with all of our employees, we'd like for y'all to take that into consideration at a board workshop or a later date. This is just a plan for discussion. And the other part of the policy we wanted to bring up was the dismissal one that I just went over. The one that says that you can be dismissed at any time for any reason. If you look at page 2 on the DCD local, it kind of already goes through step 1, 2, 3, 4. And so depending on the action being taken against the employee, we understand that they're not all gonna go to stage 1, right? You're not all just gonna go to step 1. It depends on the severity. If it's a crime, if it's a theft, if it's physical assault, we know that can escalate to a level 4. But at least we gave every employee an opportunity to go through the levels and decide as a director or an administrator or superintendent as a board as to what levels need to be followed so we can be consistent across the board. We could have somebody that can skip to level 4 without having the right to have level 1, 2, or 3. When we can have a similar employee with similar behavior that would be given the right to go to level 1, 2, 3 by the time they got to level 4. So all we're asking is that we create some kind of consistency in the way that our at-will employees are treated and create more of an in-depth policy that clearly states where we stand and train our administrators and supervisors as to how to be more consistent in treating employees when they do need to be disciplined or written up.
Let's continue.
Yes.
I have a question. This policy, the due process has been in effect for about a year and a half. Has this
July
form-
2016.
Yeah. Has this form been available or not?
Yes,
Go ahead.
we use it in the auxiliary department. I believe it's being used in other departments, right?
Okay. Now, the
Yes.
question is this, is, you know, how many of your supervisors have been trained by the supervisors or by the department heads, the directors, on how to use this form and how to use it consistently? Because, you know, I think that's one of the issues that we're having is
That's
the
exactly.
consistent use. You know, like you mentioned, one person is treated one way, another person is treated another way. And in the name of fairness, like you said, you know, we need to establish and make sure that our supervisors are going to initiate this on a consistent basis. If you have one employee doing one act or whatever, and another person doing the exact same thing, but the supervisor, you have two different
Yes.
supervisors and they handle it a different way. You know, I guess, you know, like what you're saying is this training is gonna be very important, and we need to make sure that all the supervisors, because there's different level supervisors
Yes.
that would be in effect or be affected by this institution of this policy.
Mr. Castillo, do you know from, or maybe it's a question for HR, but how many supervisors have gone through a training for due process?
Actually, Ms. Reyna, that's a good question. As Mr. Guerrero was making those comments, I know that Mrs. Rangel met with every single director because she pretty much oversees all the auxiliary And I happened to step in when she was doing the training with all her directors as well as supervisors, and they covered this specifically. I do want to point something out, because again, Mr. Guerrero and Ms. Quintanilla, what you're bringing in terms of the dialogue is true. And the first thing that was crossing my mind, having been a campus principal for all those years, is the same thing that happens at the campus when it comes to student discipline. You know, teacher A wants to throw the book at, wants the principal to throw the book at a student for a certain incident, and then in the other campus, you might have the same incident, and the teacher's looking at a different scenario where, well, it's the first time he did this or she did this and so forth. So consistency definitely is going to be something that we want to strive for in all areas. Rest assured that there's that black and white that we always talk about, and that really is anything that goes with regard to, is it a felony or is it a crime? Obviously, this is where that dismissal, you can go from 0 to 4. So the training has taken place. That we want to revisit that? Yes, absolutely. As a refresher, just like we always want to do when it comes to staff development. You want to bring that to light once again for everyone.
I have a question also regarding this. Are the at-will employees, like let's say in your department, are they also educated or explain the process so that it's fair to all of them? I mean, so that they feel comfortable, like if they're, for whatever reason, one employee says, well, they're always, you know, writing her up or documenting, and yet another employee is very good friends with the supervisor. I mean, we hear that a lot.
Yes, yes.
How is it going to be objective, and how can you be reassured on the objectivity of the supervisor or the director or the assistant supervisor?
Thank you for your questions. My name is Patti Marquez, and I'm with the Texas State Teachers Association and the Educational Support Professional State Coordinator. We've been working with due process in multiple districts. I do want to thank the Donna ISD Board for taking initiative in adopting this board policy, because this is a huge step in securing, you know, allowing the hourly employees to feel like they have, you know, a process before being recommended for a termination. And so to answer your question, and there's that one piece that was brought up in a procedure that is used, or a document that is used, right? This is an excellent document, but it's not consistently being used across the board. And the reason it's not is because it's not in school board policy. So you adopted a good policy, but this would be a part of that policy as an exhibit, so that it is used consistently for documentation, and so it protects the district, but it also protects the member, right? So that we assure that these steps are followed, with the exception of the few that, you know, if they're severe enough, if there's huge allegations of criminal, then, you know, things have to happen in instances, and it is in this board policy, DCD local. And so the reason why people feel that it's not consistent, or they might feel like there's some are being treated differently, is because if this was in place as an exhibit, it would help to kind of do away with that, because it would have the documentation. And the employee would receive a copy of this stating this is the written warning or the verbal warning, and this is your copy to keep, but we're keeping one on file. And so by putting this in place, it would help this process into being a little more consistent. And so just to kind of restate what Diana has said, is that there's a couple of pieces that could also be clearly stated, or more clearly stated in your DCD local policy. And some of those things that she went through, and we're asking the school board to take consideration and action in this, is that right after on page number 2, right after step number 4, that piece of suspension that you received be inserted, where it would say an at-will employee will receive a written notification when placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. Suspension with pay will be an administrative measure taken in order to facilitate the investigation of allegations or questions raised concerning an employee's conduct or for the reasons deemed appropriate by the superintendent designee. After that investigation is concluded, then that determination would help you determine what would be the next steps. Are we going to place this person back to work, or are we considering the fourth level recommendation for a termination? The piece that Diana talked about, the dismissal, is we're asking the board to consider removal of that whole language, because it's already clearly stated previously that if this employee, obviously there's proper documentation that has been collected on this employee, then a recommendation for termination would move forward, and therefore that employee would have the right to file a grievance if they chose to go with a termination under DGBA local, and follow that procedure and that process.
Okay.
And
So I have another question.
Go ahead.
How have the employees been evaluated or handled prior to this? How long has this form been available?
The past school year.
What about prior? What was done?
There was
I
a lot
mean-
of different forms, and that's why we all met to decide on a universal form that could be used across the board. It's just, the different types of actions that I think.
So there was
wanting to-
No procedure was put in place prior
for all
to
these
that.
years?
Yeah, correct. And even currently, this is not consistently used because it's not an exhibit within your board policy.
So it has to be approved by the board to use this form?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
but we're
Adopted
asking,
into policy.
yeah, we're asking you to adopt it into
So
policy
if
because
we
it's
do
already
this,
there.
what happens with all the other departments? I mean-
It should be uniform. That would be the same process for anyone.
Okay,
Now, let me ask you a question. What if we adopt the form and we go through the process, and down at the very bottom it has for signature of employee.
Correct.
The signature is like when you're given a ticket by DPS. Your signature is not an admission of guilt or innocence. It's just a sign that you're accepting the form.
Correct.
Okay, I know that we had a grievance in which we had an employee refuse to sign.
Approval letter.
Yeah, and this is something that, like I said, I think that we need to make sure that, like, while we're giving our employees the due process, they also need to understand that this is a process, and like I said, it's not an admission of guilt or innocence. Is that correct? Am I?
It's not.
But
It's not.
you're acknowledging that, you did go through the process, your supervisor spoke with you, whether it was a verbal warning, first warning, second warning, third warning. But, the fact that employees need to also know that, this is just for their protection as well as the district's protection,
Trustees, it's pretty obvious is what they're asking for, and I absolutely agree that we should give them this workshop that's needed, but we also need to include legal in part of this so that we're doing everything right. Absolutely agree with what y'all are saying. It's never been done, it's very inconsistent, and it needs to stop, and we need to move forward with that. I applaud you too for coming forward and doing this, but let's enough with this, let's go, let's do it.
And one of the reasons is that what you're talking about of the lack of training is that we as TSTA train our members about this, right? You sign it, because at the bottom, the form clearly states that this is receipt and acknowledgement of a reprimand. It's not acknowledgement of any type of misconduct, right? You're just signing that you're receiving it, then you have the process, or you have the right to a rebuttal or response. But when we don't have administrators, supervisors, and even employees, I think, need to be part of it. By department, my suggestion would be that you would have workshops and trainings and collaboration. We wouldn't mind coming in and working with you and training either the board and or HR or directors, administrators, supervisors, and then also training the employees, because they have to understand that this is a process, right? And so when they're presented with such document, that they should be signing it, and then they have, they could go through the process of responding with a rebuttal.
okay. So in summary, is this an action item?
It is. Yes.
Okay, so, before we vote on this, I would rather we have the workshop, so I can make a motion for that, is that correct?
Yes, that's
Yes.
right, Dr.
So
Brown.
I would move that we have a workshop to discuss it in more detail, and that way we can discuss it with our legal regarding, I mean, we're changing a whole policy and, I mean, we're changing or amending the policy. So I move that we have a workshop and discuss all the intricacies, and maybe your staff can attend the workshop with us, before we, vote on,
Can I add something?
yes.
It seems clear that everybody wants the due process, right,
Yes.
for at-will employees, right? And I've been saying since we've been back here in Donna, and you're exactly right, like, the policy's great, but then you go to that page 3, and it's wiped out. Like, that dismissal section basically says we can do whatever we want.
Mhm.
So for there to even, I mean, we could do the workshop, and I think you should do a workshop, but I think you should, if you want this in place, you need a vote to get that out. Because if you don't vote to get that out, with that being in there, there's no teeth to the policy. So that's the truth, that's the reality of it.
Well, that's why before we vote on this per se, I'd rather we have a workshop and discuss it and have your supervisors and as many people that can attend, because we discuss things at workshops. And when we have workshops, we're here and 2 or 3 people show up.
Yeah, and I think this should be a part of a performance appraisal system for the school districts. No, it's not just I catch you and do something wrong, but how are we actually managing people's performance to the work? Are you
Exactly.
producing the work that you need to do? So I see this as a partner to some of our other policies that are around evaluation.
And I will, as stated before, the dismissal portion of anything, if anything, on it was all, so a policy was put in place, but then it kind of just, it's
Mhm.
all gone.
Right, no,
Okay.
So we
we've
have this
discussed that
law-
already. We've
law-
discussed that at
Yes.
length.
Right.
For you, Mr. Farah,
Yes, sir?
if that dismissal part is taken off,
Yes.
and somebody does something that requires immediate dismissal,
Well, you can modify it, like, you can put, like, this policy's in place, but if you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's automatic dismissal, and you don't get that due process, if you wanna do it that way. There's a lot of ways to work that dismissal language.
because it's pretty hard to do due process when somebody does something pretty heinous,
Right,
you
right.
know?
Well, and there's some, and the other policy, there's obviously legal policy trumps all local policy. So when you follow, in legal policy, you'll see there's certain things that are automatic cause of termination.
Okay, the other thing that I see, you know, this isn't in response to them, is that when a lot of these supervisors and administrators, they come in and they bring us a book. They bring us a book and all kinds of documentation that this person did all this wrong. Yet, that person was basically never notified, and there is no record of it. And so they want us to, we want you to fire this guy. And we got all this, they come in there with a book, yet nothing was ever documented. So they need to document on this form, and they need to follow through, you know, because that's the only thing we have that we can help you with. If you're having control issues with some employees, that's what it is.
Another piece about.
No documentation, and we can't help you. You know, we'd like to help you, but our hands are tied if you don't bring it to us.
And I think that as far as this dismissal piece, it's already on the step 4. If you read that language in step number 4, it clearly states that the last and most serious step in the progressive discipline process is a recommendation for termination of employment.
Is there a motion on the
Right?
table?
When making a recommendation for termination of employment, the supervisor shall be responsible for providing the
Yeah.
Human Resources Department copies of supporting documentation pertaining to all actions taken to date to correct or modify the employee's actions, right? When it continues performance of behavior, recommendations for termination, the employee shall be reviewed and approved by the Office of Human Resources, Legal Counsel, and the superintendent prior to termination or a recommendation for termination. So
Thank you.
that language is already for the termination, it's already in there. If the proper steps have been followed, the dismissal would be, it's not even necessary.
Mr. President, is there a motion on the table?
Negative, sir.
I thought I made a motion.
It was like, I can't repeat it.
Okay.
Motion to have a workshop on,
A motion to have a workshop discussing this in further detail, have the supervisors and staff attend for their input, and then revisit it.
Okay, there's a motion by Dr. Mary,
Second.
second by Mr. Avila. All in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Putting me in the spot there.
HR 3, Mr. President, trustees, report on health insurance plan year for 2017, 2018. And for this, I'll call on Ms. Angelica Del Rios.
Do we need to call a, no? I was gonna say, do we need to call a break? We need to call a break. If you allow me.
Salute.
Okay, I think it's gonna take some time to load, but you should have here it is. You should have the PowerPoint or the information in your binders. It's very short, so that if you have any questions, we can kind of go through them specifically. But what you have in that first page, what we provided for you, there it is. On that first page, what you see is a breakdown for September, October, and November. And what that is all of the, oh, is it not on?
Yeah, get closer to the mic, please.
What you see is what we have collected in terms of what's gone into the health fund from both the employer and the employee. What you see on the employee are the actual premiums that the employee pays every single month off of their paychecks for their health insurance. So we have collected a little over $4.4 million between the 3 months between the employer and the employee. The employer part is at $505 that the district contributes every single month for the employee for their health insurance. We also have received between September and November $67,000 in rebates back from our previous pharmacy carrier. So rebates are still coming in from the end of the close year from last year. The next page, what you see here, are all of the actual invoices, bills that have come in to us from both Blue Cross Blue Shield and our new pharmacy carrier, American Healthcare. Between the 3 months, we have paid out $3.8 million, and that's just in claims that have come in. That doesn't include our fees or anything else like that. That's just claims. So if we were just paying the claims, we did generate enough money between 3 months to pay those claims. But as you know, claims are not the only thing that we pay out of the health fund every single month. So in the next page, I did give you a breakdown per month on what we've paid out in the different fees and who we paid them out to. So you'll see for our admin fees that we pay out every single month to Blue Cross, it's been a little over $290,000 between the 3 months. $20,000 in additional fees that we pay out to Blue Cross. $2,000, actually here on the COBRA, on your slide, it's a little different because today we received word from Blue Cross that we actually did receive premium payments to Blue Cross for the COBRA participants. So those numbers kind of changed. We did get over $2,000 in COBRA premiums yesterday that came into Blue Cross. So those numbers are a little different than what you have. Our stop loss fees for the 3 months have reached over $500,000. And then we are incurring this year fees from American Healthcare for prior authorizations and also for clinical evaluations. So those have totaled about $14,000 total. So when we add up all of the claims that we have, plus all of the fees that we've paid out, we do show that we have spent more than we've actually brought in for those 3 months. Okay, and that takes us through the end of November. So,
So then we're at a deficit there?
right. If we look at September, October, November, yes. Because the way that it works is that we only collect premiums once a month. So we basically can say at the 20th of the month what we've collected, that's going to be it. We're not going to generate any more money after that, unless we get rebates. But even at that, the rebates are not that high right now.
What triggers the rebates? Because I seen that on the first page of 67,000.
Yes.
How'd that come about?
So it just depends. I'll go back to that. The district receives rebates, and of course, this is still from the 16-17 year. Depending on the meds that are filled, certain meds allow for us to get rebates back from the pharmacy company. And so as those rebates come in, they issue them back to us. These we were getting paid out monthly. Now with the new company, we are getting them paid out quarterly, so we probably won't see any of those rebates until maybe January, February to see what they're gonna look like. Are there any specific questions over like the employer contribution and how it's collected or the amounts? Okay. And then what I have for you is just to kind of give you an overview of our enrollment. And what I mean by enrollment is the people actually on our plan. We do have a little over 4,000 people on our plan because remember, we do insure dependents, spouses, children. So that gives us that number. And then what I also thought was important to share with you, this is only September and October because Blue Cross gives us the actual data, an analysis of our claims around the 14th, 15th of each month. So the November data is not available just yet. But what I think is important to share is that we do have already 3 high-cost claimants. And what that means is that between September and October, we've had 3 people that have reached over the $50,000 expenditures and claims. And when we were kind of looking at the numbers and trying to, we don't get individual names because of HIPAA, but we get ID numbers. And so I was able to go back and see that 2 of this year's high-cost claimants are also last year's high-cost claimants. And so those are claims that we're going to keep on incurring probably for those same people. So those are costs that really are probably not going to lower anymore this year. So, and between the 3 individuals that have already hit the $50,000 mark or higher, between those 3, they have consumed 20% of our total claims. And so when we start looking at ways as to what do we need to do to help the health fund, these are things that we need to start looking at because we really just can't say let's just higher premiums because we really won't know that that's going to help us. And so this is the data that we use to kind of start looking at that. But yeah, the numbers are there. So one other thing also is that 2 of our 3 high-cost claimants that we have as of now, we have specific riders on our stop loss, meaning that for the majority of the employees, the stop loss is $300,000. So once we hit 300,000, we're no longer responsible for those claims. But for these two individuals, there's a specific rider, meaning that that doesn't pertain to them. And so we're responsible for the first 1.3 million on these two.
3 million?
1.3. So these are just kind of things for y'all to consider and to think about when we come back with you for reports, is that, I mean, it's more than just the numbers. It's really digging in and looking at these things and trying to figure out where our claims are going. And I think that's the last one. So Mr. Castillo and Ms. Ibarra asked to just kind of bring you up to date on what the plan is, kind of moving forward from here, and give you all some possible dates. We did have a live interaction session with looking at our plan design, and what we did was we were able to do simulations, and so we plugged in that we increased deductible, so to speak, on our medium plan. What does that mean? How much savings are we going to generate on the district's end if we were to increase the deductible? Then what was really interesting was that we were able to see how many people were actually affected by that, not just financial-wise, but the count. And so if we raise a deductible, let's just say by $50, for example, just to kind of give a number, it told us, okay, you have a potential savings of, let's just say, $1 million. But from there, you have 200 people that will be affected by it, and this is by how much they would be affected by it. So when we start making decisions about plan design change, we're not just kind of putting numbers out there. We'll be able to come back and tell you, okay, this is the plan design, and this is how many people affected, how much financial-wise are they affected, and also what savings is it for the district. Because one thing is that if we have a savings of, like, let's say $200,000, but it's going to affect 1,000 of our employees over $2,000, well, then that might not be a change we want to make. So those are the things that we're going to come back to you with. So our goal is for March, because what we want to do is take 3 possible plan designs to a committee in January, then give us some time to look at them, and then come back to you all in March with a plan design change that we'll adopt for the next school year or the next plan year. So some of the things that we're going to be looking at is changing deductibles, max out of pocket, co-pays, premiums. I know that you know, we are very lucky with the premiums that we have, but that's going to be something that we might have to start looking at. And then maybe changing out some of the plan options, both the tiers and the coverage levels that we offer, and then offering really some wellness incentives, because one of the things that we're seeing is that a lot of our costs are going to pay for claims that it's not anything that the employee can do to get better. They're just things that they have been born with, or things that are out of their control. So if we try to manage the other stuff that we can help the employees with wellness incentives, that should help with the claims cost also. And so, yeah, a little bit about the plan modeling. That's what we're able to do, is really get an idea. I mean, we could probably spend months sitting in with those live simulations, because you change one thing and you see everything that it does, and you kind of get excited, and then you want to change other things, and then it's like, well, let's go back and put that back and then change this. So it was very dynamic, and it was exciting to see, but we will come back with the committee hopefully in January, and then bring this back to you all in March, so we can kind of see those changes and some ideas on what we can do.
What do you mean by we're lucky with the premiums that we have? Are you saying that compared to other districts?
To other districts, yes. Our premiums are very low.
Our premiums are very low.
What the employee pays out monthly.
$15, right?
Yes.
It's $15 for the individual, right?
Right.
And how
right.
much is it for the family?
$440.
$440. Okay, so you have a employee A who's single, he's gonna pay $50. Got employee B with a family of a wife and 1 child.
$440.
$440. You have employee C who has
7 children.
7 kids. Yeah. $440.
$440.
$440, like $4?
$440.
Okay. So I said $4. It's like
$440.
So really, you know, it might, you know, be something that we could look at is like if we have the employee with a spouse and a child.
That'd be one plan.
Yeah, and maybe either lower it or the individual who's got 2 to 4 kids and 4
one
to
amount.
6 kids.
But you'll come up with those scenarios, right?
Yes, we'll come back with, our hope is 3, because if we bring more, then it gets very overwhelming to kind of pick, and then, so we'll bring 3 to committee, and then we'll bring back to you the 3, and then give you the committee's recommendation, and then we can decide from there, which route we're gonna go. But I think we're at a point to where we do really need to look at those changes and move forward with them.
Mr. Delirios, did we ever implement that Solaric system?
We are working for January. I've received what, kind of like a test file from the lady over at Colonial. And so we've been manipulating it to make sure that we know exactly how to use it. And so we've been with that test file back and forth. So we are gonna shoot for January, a live January.
With that implementation of that program, would that help you run these different scenarios?
No, it's totally separate from the plan design.
Solaric is basically for.
It's
the
an
billing-
enrollment platform, yeah.
For billing and we need to try to get that up and running. And would that help you, also be able to give us more detailed reports?
So not for the health, no. What we get here is, it comes from the Blue Cross portal.
Right.
Okay, is Solaric something that only works like with the Colonial? Is that what we're saying there? The
No,
voluntary?
it's an enrollment platform that what is built into that system is what's sent to the carriers. And so, let's say like we had all of you all in the Solaric system, it tells Colonial and it tells the other carriers the different products you have and how much you pay. So everything is kind of stored there.
But it doesn't interface.
As far as claims, or
it doesn't
none of that's
interface
in
with
there.
claims.
No, no, not at all.
Okay, any questions from anybody else?
No.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
ma'am.
Delirios. Mr. President, trustees, we move on to HR 4. And this item reads as follows: discussion and possible action to recommend and approve an executive search firm. So this is a trustee item.
Okay, discussion and possible action to recommend and approve an executive search firm. Anybody have any comments or anything to add to this?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve such an executive search firm.
Which one? What one?
Guerra and Associates. I don't have the darn name with me right here.
They gave a
The
presentation
one
on
that gave us the
Thursday.
presentation
We had 2
last week.
presentations that were done. One was by
The boardwalk shop, yeah. Got it.
Casby and the other one was by Mr.
James Guerra?
Yeah, James Guerra.
Okay, so there's a motion by Mr. Billman to approve the James Guerra search firm. Need a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Avila. All in favor?
In favor.
Favor.
In favor.
Okay, anybody against? Ms. Watts? Okay, motion carries.
Moving on to HR 5, Mr. President, trustees, discussion and possible action to approve 2017-2018 DISD cheerleading constitution and all addendums effective immediately. And again, this is a board action, board item.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Castillo, and community members. We are here to talk about the cheer constitution. You were provided packets that include the cheer constitution, and you also have a bound copy of a side-by-side comparison of previous constitutions to the current constitution. I would like to start by saying that the last time that a committee convened. The last time that a committee for the cheer constitution came together was back in 1990. That's already like 30 years, almost 30 years. We were brought together as a remedy to a grievance that had been filed with concerns about how the previous constitutions were interpreted. The stipulations, rules, policies, and guidelines of this constitution were to be inclusive of all middle and high schools of the district. As you know, now we have 2 high schools, so that created some situations and issues that had to be addressed as well and included in the Constitution. The board requested that all or as many of the issues and concerns be addressed, improved, added, and stated in the Constitution. The committee was created by a Donna ISD board member, community members, business members, cheer sponsors, cheerleaders, student council members, civic and church organization members, cheer parents, school teachers, campus administration, etc. And it was created by personal invitation, word of mouth, and recommendations from members who had already agreed to participate.
Was it open to everybody who basically wanted it to be included?
We did open it up. After the first meeting, we agreed, the committee that showed up, the committee members that showed up on that first meeting agreed that the closing of the members would happen at the following meeting, and to get the word out, you know, if anybody else wanted to come in and join in, they were more than welcome. But that was word of mouth. We didn't advertise through a newspaper, radio, or social media, or anything like that. The committee did meet every week beginning August 21st, with the exception of a couple of weeks due to conflicts with Meet the Teacher Night and one much needed break that our members just felt they needed. You know, it just started to get very hectic. The committee met about 8 times for a total of 24 to 30 hours. And while that doesn't seem like a lot, it's a lot for the members, because we have members that are full-time employees. They run businesses. They participate in other organizations. They are full-time parents. They are cheer parents and sports parents. And so they want to be present at their children's activities. And so the sacrifice of time to meet once a week was exactly that. It was a sacrifice. And I commend the committee for that. And at this time, with that in mind, I would like our committee members that are present to please stand up. They deserve a big round of applause, because they put in a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of effort, a lot of sacrifice to getting this Constitution to where it is. The committee also voted on 2 different occasions to vote on a total of 94 items. And those are just things that we could think of to put on the ballot. That's aside from other items that we discussed verbally that we could easily agree on, and phone calls, emails, one SurveyMonkey vote, that one item that we voted on through SurveyMonkey because we just couldn't get together that one week. I already mentioned that the side-by-side was created for your convenience so that you can take a look at the previous constitutions. A few of the concerns that the committee addressed in this constitution were the areas of discipline. As you know, discipline has evolved quite a bit. The infractions have been extended from the 90s, from the early 90s. We now have social media, which is a big problem. We have students that are just finding a way, you know, there's just more to it that they didn't used to get in trouble for in the past. It wasn't a big deal, but now it is because of safety issues. We've got weapon issues, we've got drug issues and things like that. We addressed the tryout criteria, and with that in mind, just so that you can have an idea of why we addressed tryouts, is for this reason right here. If you look at column D, these are all of the contestants that tried out for cheer, for varsity cheer last spring. Their names are not on here, and the order, the number that they had is not on here either. But the scores are respective to an individual candidate for cheer. Column D, if you take a look up at column D, I don't know if this can get any bigger. Does this get bigger? Right here. Column D right here already has it filtered and sorted for your convenience. From the largest score, these are averages, to the lowest. And if you look at this, the highest average was 77.6, and the lowest was 20. According to the Constitution that we followed before this one, the cutoff was supposed to be at the natural break. The natural break here, the natural break in scores would be at about 60. Is that number 15 right there? Or would it be 67? Right here. Right here. One more? Okay. The natural break would have been right at 15. So according to the Constitution, the way it was written, those 15 and up should have been the only ones to make the squad.
The varsity squad.
Right, the varsity squad. And then you would have added one extra cheer member with the Indian Sweetheart. Okay? And so now we have all of these students right here, all of these candidates. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 candidates that were placed on the squad anyway. And if you look at the disparity in scores here, from 77 all the way to 20, you know, and my heart goes out to these students that scored very low. You know, it really does, because their heart was in it. They wanted to try. But they were either inexperienced, they don't have the training that other cheerleaders have received throughout, you know, their cheerleading career. And so what does this do? It creates a safety issue. As the student who spoke in open forum brought to your attention. She wasn't the only one that got injured. There was another one this year that got injured, and she was in crutches for a good portion of football season. She could not cheer. All that money spent, all that effort, and that one actually during summer camp at cheer camp came home with the majority of the awards. And yet she could not enjoy football season because she got injured. Because one of the girls that scored very low didn't know how to catch her and dropped her, and she got injured. So those are the things that we had to consider. Now, before I go any further, we've been hearing through the rumor mill, you know, how the committee has been criticized, you know, that we don't have the experience. We don't have any cheer parents. We don't have any cheerleaders. We had a total off and on membership of 35 people, including about 9 or 10 cheerleaders who had input from freshman squad, JV squad, and varsity. We had student council representation, because a handful of these cheerleaders are also on student council. We are not anti-student in creating the stipulations, rules, and guidelines of this Constitution. We are pro-safety.
Do we include, members from both schools?
Yes, sir, we did. We did have members from both schools. We had Mr. Mario Ruiz here, and we had Ms. Belle Ruiz as well. And we had a couple of parents who, for some reason, just couldn't attend anymore that were coming. Cheer sponsors from other middle schools and from elementary were also present. We had a former Indian sweetheart as one of our committee members, former cheerleaders, former DEETs, FFA members, band members. We had a wide array of experience that was brought to the table with our committee.
So what your, I guess the committee is recommending is that wherever that natural break in the scoring, that's gonna be the cutoff?
That's gonna be the cutoff, and what we actually did with tryout criteria is that we imposed a minimum allowable score. So we're going to have a squad of up to 16 members if they meet the criteria. So it's very possible, Mr. Guerrero, that if we don't have enough students scoring that minimum score, then that's it. If all we end up having is 8 cheerleaders any given year, or 12, then that's it. But it's all in the name of safety. You know, the students have to have some sort of experience in that.
Back in the dark ages when I was in school? I think we only had what, seven cheerleaders?
There was only 5, sir.
Five?
There was 4 cheerleaders and an Indian sweetheart, DONNA.
Yes. I remember that there was not a whole lot of cheerleaders. On the
Now it's
varsity
welcome
part.
to Donna, Texas, exclamation point, bienvenidos.
So, anyway, so we're looking at no more than 16?
No more, it's up to, that is the limit. And at Donna High School, the 16th member is, the last member that gets a spot on the squad will be the Indian sweetheart. She automatically has a spot on the squad.
And what if that Indian sweetheart is not properly trained?
Well, this is, okay, this is where you're gonna come in.
Go for it.
I did hear the concerns of Ms. Mata saying that student council should be made in charge of the Indian sweetheart, the way it used to be. And she's right. It used to be way back in the day that Indian sweetheart elections were headed by and controlled by student council. They selected the candidates. They selected the candidates that were going to run for Indian sweetheart, and then they handled the elections and so on.
And originally, it was the person who raised the most pennies.
Right, for war bonds. It's a beautiful history. I don't know if all of you are familiar, but it's a beautiful history with the Indian sweetheart, a beautiful tradition. And in the early 90s, though, things took a turn for a very dark side. And in retaliation of a senior prom, a substandard senior prom that was provided by the junior class, because as you know, senior prom is provided by the junior class. Right. And the junior class one year provided a very substandard senior prom party for the seniors of that year. And in retaliation, the seniors of the student council chose a candidate for Indian sweetheart who didn't have any experience, had very limited means economically, financially, her family. And probably not even a very popular girl in school, and it was a joke. They turned it into a joke, and they voted her in as Indian sweetheart. And that was very traumatic. She was a trooper. She fulfilled her duties as Indian sweetheart that year, as difficult as it was. But if you, I can't think of a more classic example of bullying than that. And so since that time, go ahead.
And I can attest that since I was the chair for the 75th reunion in 2009, she was, when we called her, she basically said she wasn't going to come back to relive that moment, especially because it was such a hard year with the abuse that she went through.
And so then, since that time, student council has not had control over the candidates of Indian Sweetheart, and it started becoming more of a popularity contest where they would just campaign, and whoever got the most votes would win. And so that's how it is today for the most part. It's a popularity contest, and it's gotten very expensive for the families. We've got families willing to put in a second mortgage on their homes for Indian Sweetheart elections. And that is the truth, because they stated it in one of our meetings. And so what we've done is change the elections of Indian Sweetheart to where there isn't going to be any of these campaign doodads that they're able to pass out. That runs into a lot of money, and T-shirts and bottles of water with their names on it, and it gets really, really, really expensive, into the thousands. You're talking thousands of dollars for a campaign for Indian Sweetheart, and that's not including whoever wins what they pay for their uniform. Right. Okay, so then what we've done is we've limited the amount that is allowed. Only the candidate running for Indian Sweetheart will be allowed to wear a T-shirt. None of her campaign people will be allowed to wear a T-shirt, and that's going to be the same for Donna North for their Spirit and Princess elections. They will be able to continue with the decoration of their windows at Donna High School and with their columns at Donna North. And then any future high schools that come along in the future, they'll choose a piece of the high school property to decorate and make it their own. They're going to have that autonomy, and also in the design of their uniforms. There will be paid judges because of the criticism, the speculation that votes are tampered with a 2-day election. Elections have now been reduced to just 1 day to avoid the full day, to avoid ballots being kept overnight, or the speculation that someone is tampering with votes overnight, because we get those complaints year after year after year. And so now we're going to have paid judges and monitors. Student council will no longer have control over the elections of, not from Donna. From Donna North, it'll be a little bit different. There will be a $75 registration fee for Indian Sweetheart, and those are the funds that will be used to afford the paid judges and monitors. And then Donna North Student Council will be paying for the judges and monitors from their Student Council Activity Fund. And you may be asking, what's the difference? At Donna North, the Spirit and the Princess are more of an academic ceremonial figure. They are not cheerleaders. They don't have to have any cheerleading experience whatsoever to run for Spirit and Princess. And the difference is at North is that they actually have a committee of teachers and a couple of student council members who choose the candidates. And it is a blind selection. The students that turn in all of the stuff that's required, their essays, their grades, are blinded. And so then when the judges are looking over everything, they don't even know who they're voting for. They're just giving them the score that they feel they deserve. And then once everything is said and done, they tally their scores, and then whoever has the highest will be selected as Princess and Spirit. As candidates, right. and then the students will vote for whoever they feel they want to vote for. What else? Do we have any further questions from the board?
Yes. One of the questions that I have is, we're supposed to vote on this as a final tonight?
That was actually the
Because I haven't had a chance to
Constitution.
look it over completely.
The Constitution, right.
And if we're gonna do the Constitution, I think we're gonna need a little more time. That's
Okay.
one. Also, are we 100% sure on the requirements for eligibility and stuff? I think there might be some discrepancies there. And also, I don't know, because I haven't been able to look at the whole book, but you mentioned that they weren't gonna be allowed to do certain things at election time. What if there's a violator? Is that person gonna be eliminated?
Well, okay, that's a good question.
Or can they bend the
If they
rules
are-
and it's okay?
If they are, if, in the way of handouts, like solicitation, campaign material, all that's gonna happen is that they're going to be confiscated, and that's a stipulation. Those items will be
Then that
confiscated.
rule shouldn't be there.
Which one?
That one. That if they're violating the election rules, they should be disqualified. If
In
they're
the
trying
way-
to pass out candy or they're trying to pass out something else, they need to be disqualified.
We can put that in there if that's what you want.
And you have video cameras so you can see who's doing it.
Right.
Right?
And we can do that
Okay.
if that's what you want.
And the other thing is, assigning of the windows, who's gonna assign the windows? First come,
They
first
actually
served?
draw. That stays the
Good.
same. There's a
Good,
drawing
because
for
I don't
whoever
wanna see
gets
a-
what window.
A dog pile there for the center window.
Right, no. They actually, the practice has always been, Mr. Ceniceros, is that the names go into a little
They
bowl
draw.
and somebody draws, and then whoever draws first gets window number 1 or whatever. And then they fight, yeah.
Now, what happens if a relative of the person running for sweetheart is the one caught doing something illegal? Does that disqualify the kid as well?
Is it on campus?
Yes. And I think it should.
Okay.
And is it in here? And
No.
it better be in here very clearly, because if it's not, then you're gonna have parents coming in there and doing things, well, my daughter can't do it, but I can. And that's.
And that's a very good point, and we will be more than glad to put that in there, if that's what you feel needs to be in there.
I think it needs to be in there.
so.
Everything
Okay.
needs to be very clear, because
Now, the only
everybody
other
will
thing
bend
is.
the rules as far as they can.
Yes.
And,
Now,
uh,
the only other thing is that came up is the question of outside campaigning. We can't control what
No, you
parents
can't.
are willing to do at home.
If they wanna do
If they want to do a
phone bank, let 'em.
pachanga, full-blown, band and everything, more power to them. We can't control that. We can only control what goes on at school. And then as far as relatives campaigning on campus, in the 7 years that I've been on campus, I've never seen it. I've seen relatives bring stuff, but now with this, that we shouldn't have that problem of relatives bringing things over to the campus. And they also have to sign in, at least I think at both high schools, they have to sign in and state their purpose. And if the purpose isn't conducive to the educational environment of the campus, then they're really not allowed to go any further than the front office.
I still think it needs to be on there.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree, because
And that's
they
fine.
might even work there,
Mhm.
and you don't know.
Right,
Mr.
and
President.
you're right. And so we can put that in there. That's not a problem.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you all have the Institute Constitution with you guys as well? Do you all have the Institute Sweetheart
It's in there.
It's all in
It's
here.
all in there in the addendums.
Well, basically, what I'm saying is that I think we need more time to look at this and maybe go over it, and if we have questions, maybe get back to you. or
The,
go through- I guess go through the superintendent and have him relay the message to you.
That's fine.
And then, that way we can make an educated decision, because if we make a decision now, I haven't looked at a lot of stuff in here, and I'm gonna approve stuff that I don't even know
We
it's
don't
in there.
even know.
Is this the student council, the article, I don't know what that number is, but is this what it looks like? I just wanna make sure we have the same thing that what you are referring to, otherwise we would need also, to me, there sounds like there's a question between who is making the policies for Indian Sweetheart? The
Indian
student council?
Sweethearts have to be cheerleaders. Indian Sweethearts have to have that 1 year of cheerleading experience, so they are
We need to have
cheerleaders.
order here, please.
Okay, keep it down, please.
And they do have to have that 1 year of cheerleading experience in order to try out for Indian Sweethearts, so that automatically makes them cheerleaders. And when you read the Constitution, the Indian Sweetheart takes her spot on the squad. That 16th spot, if it goes up that high, is for the Indian Sweetheart because she does assume the role as a cheerleader.
Okay, I'm gonna allow, is it Mr. Sorrell?
Sorrell, right.
Go ahead, ma'am.
But what they're bringing up, I don't know if y'all know, my daughter was the first cheerleader to get a scholarship to go to college as a cheerleader. Cheerleaders have become very competitive. I would love to see this program really grow. We have students from Edinburgh Bobcats, you have Pioneer competing in UIL. Where is Donna at? Being Aisha, my daughter, being the first recipient of a cheer scholarship, we need to give hope to these girls. We need to bring it up. You know, my son also, he's a teacher, he's a coach. He offered to help at veterans, and they didn't let him. Our cheerleaders could be amazing if we let previous cheerleaders, students, I know Nina is an amazing cheerleader. We have to help. We just need to put it together, you know? And that about only so many cheerleaders, do that. Don't bring other people. If they made it, they made it. Don't get upset. My daughter never made captain or co-captain, and yes, I was upset, but she was a national champion and All-American and everything. But you know what? I said, just go perform, do your job, and that's it. You know, and move on. Don't let, you know, I'm sorry. There's classes out there, there's private classes for these girls to learn. So take it up there. There's people willing to help Donna, and I'm one of them, and I know my son and my daughter are willing to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a student in the back.
Okay, we got is it a student? Go ahead, sir.
Hi everyone, I'm Sinubadi President of Zapata. What I was saying that before I was cut off was that the committee was in charge of creating and modifying the cheerleading constitution. But however, they provided copies of the Indian Sweetheart Constitution. This was not supposed to be brought up. I was under the impression that this was going to be affecting the cheerleading constitution, but now it's the Indian Sweetheart Constitution. Like I was saying, Indian Sweetheart is brought and created by the student council. And it's upsetting to see that the students of Donna High School have no part in what goes on in the student council and the Indian Sweetheart Constitution. Like she said, the student council has been in charge of the monitoring and the voting process, and now you're saying that the student body who is directly going to vote for the next Indian Sweetheart is going to no longer, because we were voted officials by the student body, we are no longer going to have that participation and that direct line to creating and preserving the tradition that is the Indian Sweetheart. So you, by removing student council from Indian Sweetheart tradition, will not only one, deteriorate the tradition itself, but you're gonna create a huge thing that's gonna be lost forever in Donna. A lot of people don't know this, but you're saying, oh, tradition died in the 90s, like you said, that they took a turn for the worse, whatever, or not whatever, but that's how you said it. The tradition has evolved, and it did not take a turn for the worse. It evolved is what she should have said. The tradition is constantly evolving. Like she said, there are things that needed to be added because this wasn't an issue in the past of safety and things like that. That is completely true. But just like that, there are things that are evolving in the Indian Sweetheart tradition, like social media and like people getting so into the campaign that they feel that they need to start creating stuff since the summer. And I know because my best friend ran for Indian Sweetheart and she won. My cousin back there, Caterina Mata, she ran for Indian Sweetheart and she won. And we were creating things, handmade stuff all throughout our spring break, all throughout summer, and planning stuff and creating our shirt designs. And this is a bonding experience. This is a student involvement thing that helps you grow as a person and helps you create your own campaign. You see who your friends are, everyone gets together, it's an experience that you're gonna take away from the students of Donna High School. And not only that, students of Donna High Schools and other students in in the valley even make note of the traditions that are going on at our school during Indian Sweetheart Week. I saw it on social media where people comment on my stuff and say, oh, I don't know this girl personally, but I really hope she wins because I love Donna's tradition. Everything is the same every single year. Beautiful uniforms, beautiful handmade uniforms, and to see that they're gonna keep poking at our tradition, pretty soon what's gonna be left of it? Because if you cut ties from the student body itself, I don't know what else to say. And another thing, Donna High School Student Council goes and attends state conferences every year. And they're at our state conference, you know, right? At our state conferences, we are greeted by huge crowds of people who are running for state offices. And when we get to those conferences, they say, oh, take this ribbon, take this lanyard, take this, not lanyard, necklace, take a tattoo, take a sticker. They are passing out things. And like I said, Donna High School Student Council created Indian Sweetheart. So when we go to these conferences and they're passing out stuff like that, that is where our tradition came from, of passing out things and stuff like that, because it was created by student council, not the community. And to see the community going in and trying to corrupt and deteriorate and take out the students' involvement is very disappointing. And I hope that the board has taken note of what has been said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
You may, sir?
This is great. I love how everybody gets involved, but remember, do they recuse themselves from voting? Because they're part of the elections. If we allow this, it's like allowing the Hidalgo County Elections Department to come in, take care of everything, and then themselves vote and take care of everything. Because they're allowed to be part of the process, the campaigning and all that. And then on top of that, they're allowed to be the ones in charge of doing the election. So wouldn't that constitute a conflict of interest? So those are things that, yes, it's great that you guys are being involved, but you also need to learn a lot of things that are legal that you all need to learn by the time you are able to vote. Okay?
Okay, let's get back on task. Go ahead and continue with your
And
presentation.
so, with that being said, my question then would be, when was the last time that student council controlled who ran for Indian Sweetheart? And that's been years, tens of years. The conflict of interest, the gentleman that just spoke before you was the campaign manager for the 2 Indian Sweethearts, and he was on student council, so that created a conflict of interest issue. And he boasted about it, that because he did that, they won. So it raises red flags with that. Now, student council, because the students are the ones handling the elections, a lot of questions are raised in the integrity of the election, because the students are letting their friends vote twice, 3 times. They'll vote during lunch A, they'll vote during lunch B, or whatever. Have I seen it? No. But those are the questions that get raised, and those are the questions that we as administrators are confronted with. And so to eliminate all speculation regarding the elections is why we are now turning towards paid monitors and judges. And it saves thousands of dollars for these families unless they choose to campaign outside of school, which we can't control.
I remember one year that when I was at the high school, didn't we contract with the Hidalgo County voter?
With the machines.
The machines.
Normally, we always had the machines at the time. That's what we would do. And they would provide someone from county personnel, but then also the district would also provide individuals to be there as the administrators for that time as well.
Okay, I think we've spent enough time on this already, and I think that by now we need to have a
Motion table.
There's a motion by Mr. Guerrero to table this item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Mary. All in favor?
In favor.
Anybody opposed? Okay, we will look at this. Give us time to look it over, and then we have questions.
And thank you to
we'll
the
get back
students for sharing. I know it's hard, it's hard to, adults get scared of talking in front of other adults, so I appreciate you all just sharing your experiences and your perspective. This is what we need more of. We need more student voice to help inform where we're going as a district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the consent agenda, Mr. President and trustees. We've got 10 items. As noted earlier, 11 was deleted prior to the meeting. And as a consent agenda, unless there's someone that has a specific question on any particular item to pull out.
Okay, consent agenda items 1 through 10. Any questions from anybody? If there are none, I need a motion.
Administration recommends approval.
I so move.
Motion by Mr. Billman, second by Ms. Watts. All in favor?
Favor.
In favor.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Moving on to district operations, Mr. President, trustees, we've got Architect's Monthly Report, ROFA, status report on all of Donna ISD's current facility projects. Mr. Figueroa is here, and I know that here recently we had a special board meeting where he gave you an update, and as trustees, you approved to begin the process with the W.A. Todd new addition of the wing, but nevertheless, he's gonna give us an update. So, Mr. Figueroa? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're like,
See if I could, I'll be very brief. I handed out the same presentation I'm going to present. Y'all can look at it at your leisure a little bit later as well, so you can see some of the color coding of the spaces. But basically, right after your
excuse me,
special.
can we have quiet in the audience, please? Thank you.
Immediately after your last special board meeting, the following day, my partner Humberto Rodriguez and Ben Boraya from my office came to visit with your staff. Part of the staff that's been meeting with the building committee, and also Mr. Angel was there, and Mr. Frank Cuellar were also in attendance. But it was a real good meeting because it gave us the kind of information we needed to be able to get them to share with us some of the things that they thought were important for this project. They pretty much liked the layout of the that we had before, and the restroom locations, not only for students but also for staff, and the additional storage areas that we had. They did make one great comment, and that was in the life skills, and I'll go over that in just a minute. You can see all that's in yellow are the classrooms. There's actually 16 classrooms. The other two yellow ones, number 18 and 19, are actually the existing building that take up the space of the life skills. On the top left, the light blue is actually the life skills area. And we were able to discuss the actual positioning of the room, the type of equipment they may need, and basically they talked about the whiteboards, the tack boards, the smart boards, the location of them, the teacher station. Also talked about computer stations and teacher storage areas, and basically a built-in cabinet. One of the interesting things on life skills was that they really thought it would be a good idea to be able to have windows looking towards the bus drive where the buses are going to come in, so that they can actually see them and anticipate being able to take the children out at the time, the students out at the time. So we have, if you remember, these spaces here, last time were over on this wall. And so we've placed the windows over on this end so the teachers can actually be able to be attending to the buses coming in. And also we switched the storage room from this side over to being out against the wall because they did want washers and dryers, and we want to be sure we have the ventilation to the outside. And again, they also wondered why at one time we had talked about putting the life skills over on this other corner. And we explained to them the efficiency of being able to having all the plumbing on one side of the building, and they were okay with that. So they appreciated those additional windows. So basically, you have a classroom. You can see here at the entrance, at the door entrance, the opposite side is the teacher's station. They've got a smart board with whiteboards on each side. The You got the teachers, the student seating areas, the teacher's cabinet, a whiteboard in the rear side, and then the computer stations. The life skills, this is going to be a very flexible space, but they did need the basic things that the other classrooms have, and that is the whiteboards, the tack boards, the smart boards, and so those are located in strategic areas, but it's going to be a very flexible space. It's a little bit bigger than what they have right now. I'd say probably about 74, 75 square feet in the open area, and then we also increased the size of the restroom, the kitchen, and the storage. The restroom, we talked last time about a need of having a bed inside of that area instead of being outside in the classroom. So we've made accommodations for that. The kitchen as well will have all of its kitchen equipment in the space, and then the storage will have the washers and dryers and as much storage as we can get in there. That's what they requested. Okay. Mr. Billman, I know you asked about the electrical and the meter. We have done initial reports, reviews with the engineers. They feel very comfortable that we'll be able to do that, not need any meter.
Thank you.
Also, the air conditioning, you do have the chilled water system. It is going to require an expansion to the chiller system, but that should not be a problem. That way you have the same kind of provisions for air conditioning as you have in the main building. Okay, it might take raising the roof on that area where the mechanical room is a little bit higher, but we'll make those accommodations.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Are we just accommodating 24 desks in the classroom?
That's what we have right now. We're at 24.
Plus
You
the
could actually get
4
28 based
plus
on.
the 4 workstations?
Yes, sir. But you could actually put in 28 stations. I believe TEA recommends 24, 25 at the most, but you can actually accommodate 28 based on the square footage based on the International Building Code.
Mr. Fedora, the question that I have is, what is the square footage going to be for this new wing per room?
Each room's going to be about a little over 700 square feet.
And just so that we'll know that, because that particular campus, which is now taught, became Donna High School, I believe it's 1969. Did we ever measure what a classroom was compared to the new one? I know it's been upgraded.
Yes, sir, we did. I don't remember them specifically, but I think they were a little smaller than what we have now. Yes. Yes, sir. And you can kind of see the difference in these spaces, a little bit longer. This is really, it's a little bit hard to see, but these are your actual classrooms. These were, I believe, labs at one time, but these are your classrooms which are actually smaller than the ones we're proposing. We are staying on schedule. Like I said, we met that following day. We'll be ready, prepared to meet with the building committee next week if y'all are going to be able to make that meeting. We will proceed with what we're doing. We'll be able to give you an update at that point if y'all would like to have a meeting that day. We've scheduled it so that come early January when staff is back and we can have another building committee meeting, and immediately thereafter at your next board meeting, whether it be I think y'all on your agenda are contemplating rescheduling it. At either day would be okay with us to be able to present to you, to bring approval for schematic design. Any other questions?
Any questions from anybody on the board?
Ms. Rangel, please include me on the reminder, please. I know I've missed a couple due to my employment, but I want to be part of this. Thank you.
I did include it in the handout, the people that attended that meeting, just so you all know that it was well attended.
So in the November board meeting, I asked to see the 5-year plan so I can see how this fits in. So if you could email that to us.
Yeah, Ms. Rangel, I know we just discussed this. We'll email it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, any other discussion? Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. I probably won't see you again, so y'all have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mr. Figueroa.
So on the 19th, what's the date?
Moving on to academic services, Mr. President, trustees. We've got AS1, discussion and possible action on approval for the purchase of Think Right Ultra Durable USB headsets for the 2017-2018 Telpas test. And this is an item that you do have that. We did go out for the RFQs, and we did get 3. And our recommendation, the administration is recommending to award Think Right for the price of $39,737.25, which did come out lower than the other 2 vendors. And again, these are going to be used for the online testing for Telpas. This is for our limited English proficient students that must be doing the listening and speaking skills test online. And unless there's any questions, the administration recommends approval as noted.
Any questions from anybody? There's a recommendation to approve.
I so move.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Billman, second by Mr. Avila. All in favor?
Favor. In favor.
Anybody against? Motion carries.
Moving into the business and finance, we have BF1, discussion and possible action on approval of the 2017 tax roll totals for Donner Independent School District. I know this is something that must be done on a yearly basis. It had been presented to you as trustees previously, but at this time it does require board action to approve such noted recommendation. So unless we have any questions, administration recommends approval.
So move.
It's a motion by Mr. Avila to approve, second by Ms. Watts. All in favor?
In favor.
Favor.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
BF2, Mr. President and trustees, discussion and possible action to approve the letter of the agency for funding 2018 through 2017, through 2027, because it's a long-range plan. In other words, well, let me finish reading. For the funding 2018 through 2027, allowing Region 1 Education Service Center to represent Donna ISD of the procurement of internet access service, wide area network, fiber service, category 1 network equipment, and internal connections. And what we're asking here is that to be a part of what I refer to as a consortium with Region 1. They will be doing all the legwork when it comes to the procurement process. And in essence, when you see that it's when will we actually take part of this, it won't be until 5 years from now, if anything, that we qualify, because right now we are committed to, what's the name of that? Smart copies. So in essence, this is at no cost to the district, as I mentioned during our board review, but we do want to be a part and piggyback with the Region 1 Service Center, because they will be doing all the procurement, and when it comes time to everything, then we'll be set to go. Unless we have any
There's
questions.
no cost to the district?
No, sir. But we do have to be on board, and it does have require board approval as a board action.
I move that we accept the.
A second.
It's a motion by Mr. Guerrero, second by Mr. Avila. All in favor?
Favor.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Okay, time is 8:41. We're going into executive session as authorized by Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, .072, .073, .074, .075, .076, .082, .083, and .084. The time is 11:21, and we're back in open session to take possible action on matters discussed in executive session. Letter A.
Mr. President, trustees, letter A in open session, discussion and possible action to approve superintendent's recommendation of personnel. Administration recommends approval as discussed in executive session.
It's a recommendation to approve.
I move.
Motion by Dr. Berry,
Second.
second by Mr. Avila. All in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Letter B, Mr. President, trustees, discussion and possible action to approve district personnel. This item, no action.
Okay, letter C is a board action, discussion and possible action regarding placing superintendent on paid administrative leave.
Mr. Board President, Mr. Superintendent, my fellow trustees, I motion that we place our superintendent on paid administrative leave.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Billman.
I believe we need to focus on hiring a great CFO and a great assistant superintendent of HR. I really want to see the superintendent evaluation process play out this year and to really see how the superintendent does against the goals that we set at the beginning of the year. For those reasons, I vote oppose.
Okay, I think we kind of went out of order. I had a motion by Mr. Billman to suspend the superintendent or to put him on administrative leave.
Need a second,
Do I need a second?
if there is one.
Why?
Okay.
Second.
Motion. Second by Dr. Mary. Okay, the second by Dr. Mary. All in favor?
Favor?
In favor?
That was Mr. Eloy?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and I'm going to vote against. Motion carries.
Ms. Watts?
Anybody vote against? Ms. Watts votes against as well. Okay, letter D.
So just to get it clear, so we got Mr. Billman, motion, Dr. Mary, second. In favor is Mr. Watts, Eloy, and Mr. Guerrero. And we have against is Board President, Ms. Reina, and Ms. Watts.
And also for the same reason that Ms. Reyna spoke about.
Okay.
In the process.
Okay, letter D, discussion and possible action regarding selection of the interim superintendent. Anybody have any recommendations?
I would like to motion and recommend, and I got, it is Mrs., last name is Leo. Forgive me for not pronouncing her first name correctly.
Okay, Mr. Billman is making a motion to recommend a Mrs. Liu.
Can you give me her first name, Mr.?
Is Dr. Leo Filomena Leo?
Dr. Filomena Liu.
Correction, then it'll be Dr., I motion that we bring in as intern superintendent, Dr. Filomena Leo.
Second.
There's a second by Mr. Guerrero. All in favor?
Favor.
Favor.
Oppose.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a timeline as to when you want that interim brought in? Is that something that we need to discuss right now, or can we bring that up later? How does that work?
You'll need to discuss it, yeah. You need to have a timeline.
Okay, I need a effective date. Perhaps Mr. Billman, you have an idea?
Within, I would say within 10 business days, within the 10 business day period, starting as of tonight.
So the district is going to be without a interim superintendent for 10 days?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we'll give that timeline until that time. We'll work on this immediately.
What's the effective start date for the suspension?
Well, that's
The determination on when you want that effectiveness is up to you.
Make a motion that the termination be effective Friday?
The what?
Friday?
The suspension be effective Friday?
Yes. Suspension, I'm sorry, the,
You said termination.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
it's like, Val, what did you?
Excuse me.
Why don't you consider,
The administrative leave will go into effect Friday.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Can you repeat the motion there?
I make a motion that the, Mr. Castillo's administrative leave take effect Friday.
The administrative leaves take effect Friday, this Friday. And is
I
there
would
a second? to that?
I would recommend that it be at least after the holidays to close out this.
Well, let's do
That's
this.
not his motion.
He has a motion. Is there a second?
I'll
Okay,
second that.
there's a motion by
Okay.
Mr. Guerrero that the,
Administrative go into effect Friday,
at the end of the day?
yes.
At
There's
the
a
end of the day,
second.
Friday?
Friday
And there's
night.
a second by Mr. Billman. All in favor?
Favor.
Favor.
All opposed?
Oppose.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
So after Friday, who's gonna run the district?
Okay, discussion and possible,
Let them worry about it, Ms. Ruth. Nor, we
you,
don't have to.
please be quiet,
Let them
please be quiet.
concerns to them.
Discussion and possible action to approve pending contemplated litigation settlement matters where the professional duty of the requires private consultation with the school attorney. Mr. Farah,
No action on that.
no action? Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Avila, second by Mr. Guerrero. All in favor?
Favor.
In favor.
Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.